An electoral or voting system is a set of rules used to determine the results of an election. Electoral systems are used in politics to elect governments, while non-political elections may take place in business, non-profit organizations, and informal organizations. These rules govern all aspects of the voting process: when elections occur, who is allowed to vote, who can stand as a candidate, how ballots are marked and cast, how the ballots are counted, how votes translate into the election outcome, limits on campaign spending, and other factors that can affect the result. Political electoral systems are defined by constitutions, and electoral laws are typically conducted by election commissions, and can use multiple types of elections for different offices. Some electoral systems elect a single winner to a unique position, such as prime minister, president, or governor, while others elect multiple winners, such as members of parliament or boards of directors. When electing a legislature, areas may be divided into constituencies with one or more representatives, or the electorate may elect representatives as a single unit. Voters may vote directly for an individual candidate or for a list of candidates put forward by a political party or alliance. There are many variations in electoral systems. The mathematical and normative study of voting rules falls under the branches of economics called social choice and mechanism design, but the question has also engendered substantial contributions from political scientists, analytic philosophers, computer scientists, and mathematicians. The field has produced several major results, including Arrow's impossibility theorem, showing that ranked voting cannot eliminate the spoiler effect, and Gibbard's theorem, showing it is impossible to design a straightforward voting system, i.e. one where it is always obvious to a strategic voter which ballot they should cast. The most common categorizations of electoral systems are single winner versus multi-winner systems, and proportional representation versus winner-take-all systems versus mixed systems. Single winner and winner-take-all systems. In all cases, where only a single winner is to be elected, the electoral system is winner-take-all. The same can be said for elections where only one person is elected per district. Since district elections are winner-take-all, the electoral system as a whole produces disproportional results. Some systems where multiple winners are elected at once, in the same district, such as plurality block voting, are also winner-take-all. In party block voting, voters can only vote for the list of candidates of a single party, with the party receiving the most votes winning all seats, even if that party receives only a minority of votes. This is also described as winner-take-all. This is used in 5 countries as part of mixed systems. Plurality voting, first past the post, and block voting. Plurality voting is a system in which the candidate, S, with the largest number of votes wins, with no requirement to get a majority of votes. In cases where there is a single position to be filled, it is known as first past the post. This is the second most common electoral system for national legislatures, after proportional representation, with 58 countries using FPTP and single-member districts to elect the National Legislative Chamber, the vast majority of which are current or former British or American colonies or territories. It is also the second most common system used for presidential elections, being used in 19 countries. The 2-round system is the most common system used to elect a president. In cases where there are multiple positions to be filled, most commonly in cases of multi-member constituencies, there are several types of plurality electoral systems. Under block voting, also known as multiple non-transferable vote or plurality at large, voters have as many votes as there are seats and can vote for any candidate, regardless of party, but give only one vote to each preferred candidate. The most popular candidates are declared elected, whether they have a majority of votes or not, and whether or not that result is proportional to the way votes were cast. 8 countries use this system. Cumulative voting allows a voter to cast more than one vote for the same candidate, in multi-member districts. Its effect may be proportional to the same degree that single non-transferable voting or limited voting is, thus it is often called semi-proportional. Approval voting is a choose-all-you-like voting system that aims to increase the number of candidates that win with majority support. Voters are free to pick as many candidates as they like, and each choice has equal weight, independent of the number of candidates a voter supports. The candidate with the most votes wins. A runoff system is one in which a candidate receives a majority of votes to be elected, either in a runoff election or final round of vote counting. This is sometimes referred to as a way to ensure that a winner must have a majority of votes, although usually only a plurality is required in the last round, when 3 or more candidates move on to the runoff election, and sometimes even in the first round winners can avoid a second round without achieving a majority. In social choice theory, runoff systems are not called majority voting, as this term refers to Condorcet methods. There are two main groups of runoff systems. Those in one group use a single round of voting achieved by voters casting ranked votes and then using vote transfers if necessary to establish a majority, and those in the other group use 2 or more rounds of voting, to narrow the field of candidates and to determine a winner who has a majority of the votes. Both are primarily used for single-member constituencies or election of a single position such as mayor. If a candidate receives a majority of the vote in the first round, then the system is simple first past the post voting. But if no one has a majority of votes in first round, the systems respond in different ways. Under instant runoff voting, IRV, when no one wins a majority in first round, runoff is achieved through vote transfers made possible by voters having ranked the candidates in order of preference, with lower preferences used as backup preferences. This system is used for parliamentary elections in Australia and Papua New Guinea. If no candidate receives a majority of the vote in the first round, the votes of the least popular candidate are transferred as per marked second preferences and added to the totals of surviving candidates. This is repeated until a candidate achieves a majority. The count ends any time one candidate has a majority of votes, but it may continue until only 2 candidates remain, at which point one or other of the candidates will take a majority of votes still in play. A different form of single winner preferential voting is the contingent vote, where voters do not rank all candidates, but rank just 2 or 3. If no candidate has a majority in the first round, all candidates are excluded except the top 2. If the voter gave first preference to one of the excluded candidates, the votes is transferred to the next usable backup preferences if possible, or otherwise put in the exhausted pile. The resulting vote totals are used to determine the winner by plurality. This system is used in Sri Lankan presidential elections, with voters allowed to give 3 preferences. The other main form of runoff system is the 2-round system, which is the most common system used for presidential elections around the world, being used in 88 countries. It is also used, in conjunction with single-member districts, in 20 countries for electing members of the legislature. If no candidate achieves a majority of votes in the first round of voting, a second round is held to determine the winner. In most cases the second round is limited to the top 2 candidates from the first round, although in some elections more than 2 candidates may choose to contest the second round. In these cases, the second round winner is not required to have a majority of votes, but may be elected by having a plurality of votes. Some countries use a modified form of the 2-round system, so going to a second round happens less often. In Ecuador, a candidate in the presidential election is declared the winner if they receive more than 50% of the vote or 40% of the vote and are 10% ahead of their nearest rival. In Argentina, where the system is known as ballotage, election is achieved by those with majority or if they have 45% and a 10% lead. In some cases, where a certain level of support is required, a runoff may be held using a different system. In U.S. presidential elections, when no candidate wins a majority of the United States Electoral College, using seat count, not votes cast, as is used in the majoritarian systems described above, a contingent election is held by the House of Representatives, not the voters themselves. The House contingency election sees 3 candidates go on to the last round and each state's representatives vote as a single unit, not as individuals. An exhaustive ballot sees multiple rounds of voting, where no one has majority in first round. The number of rounds is not limited to 2 rounds, but sees the last placed candidate eliminated in each round of voting. repeated until one candidate has majority of votes. Due to the potentially large number of rounds, this system is not used in any major popular elections, but is used to elect the speakers of parliament in several countries and members of the Swiss Federal Council. In some systems, such as election of the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, there may be multiple rounds held without any candidates being eliminated until a candidate achieves a majority. Positional systems. Positional systems like the Borda count are ranked voting systems that assign a certain number of points to each candidate, weighted by position. The most popular such system is first preference plurality. Another well-known variant, the Borda count, each candidate is given a number of points equal to their rank, and the candidate with the least points wins. This system is intended to elect broadly acceptable options or candidates, rather than those preferred by a majority. This system is used to elect the ethnic minority representative seats in the Slovenian parliament. The Dowdle system is used in Nauru for parliamentary elections and sees voters rank the candidates. First preference votes are counted as whole numbers, the second preferences by 2, third preferences by 3, and so on. This continues to the lowest possible ranking. The totals for each candidate determine the winners. Multi-winner systems include both proportional systems and non-proportional multi-winner systems, such as party block voting and plurality block voting. Proportional representation is the most widely used electoral system for national legislatures, with the parliaments of over 80 countries elected by a form of the system. These systems elect multiple members in one contest, whether that is at large, as in a city-wide election at the city level or statewide or nationwide at those levels, or in multi-member districts at any level. Party list proportional representation is the single most common electoral system and is used by 80 countries, and involves seats being allocated to parties based on party vote share. In closed list systems, voters do not have any influence over which candidates are elected to fill the party seats, but in open list systems voters are able to both vote for the party list and for candidates, or only for candidates. Voters thus have means to sometimes influence the order in which party candidates will be assigned seats. In some countries, notably Israel and the Netherlands, elections are carried out using pure proportional representation, with the votes tallied on a national level before assigning seats to parties. There are no district seats, only at large. However, in most cases several multi-member constituencies are used rather than a single nationwide constituency, giving an element of geographical or local representation. Such may result in the distribution of seats not reflecting the national vote totals of parties. As a result, some countries that use districts have leveling seats that are awarded to some of the parties whose seat proportion is lower than their proportion of the vote. Leveling seats are either used at the regional level or at the national level. Such mixed-member proportional systems are used in New Zealand and in Scotland. They are discussed below. List PR systems usually set an electoral threshold, the minimum percentage of the vote that a party must obtain to win leveling seats or to win seats at all. Some systems allow a go-around of this rule. For instance, if a party takes a district seat, the party may be eligible for top-up seats even if its percentage of the votes is below the threshold. There are different methods of allocating seats in proportional representation systems. There are two main methods, highest average and largest remainder. Highest average systems involve dividing the votes received by each party by a divisor or vote average that represents an idealized seats to votes ratio, then rounding normally. In the largest remainder system, parties' vote shares are divided by an electoral quota. This usually leaves some seats unallocated, which are awarded to parties based on which parties have the largest number of leftover votes. Single transferable vote, STV, is another form of proportional representation. Like list PR, STV is designed to elect multiple winners. In STV, multi-member districts or multi-winner at-large contests are used. Each voter casts one vote, being a ranked ballot marked for individual candidates, rather than voting for a party list. STV is used in Malta, the Republic of Ireland and Australia, partially. To be certain of being elected, candidates must pass a quota, the Droop quota being the most common. Candidates that achieve the quota are elected. If necessary to fill seats, the least successful candidate is eliminated and their voters transferred in accordance with the rankings marked by the voter. Surplus votes held by successful candidates may also be transferred. Eventually all seats are filled by candidates who have passed the quota, or there are only as many remaining candidates as the number of remaining open seats. Under single non-transferable vote, SNTV, multi-member districts are used. Each voter can vote for only one candidate, with the candidates receiving the most votes declared the winners, whether any of them have a majority of votes or not. Despite its simplicity, its results are very close to those of STV and List PR. Every district elects a mixed, balanced multi-party group of representatives. This system is used in Kuwait, the Pitcairn Islands and Vanuatu. In several countries, mixed systems are used to elect the legislature. These include parallel voting, also known as mixed-member majoritarian, and mixed-member proportional representation. In non-compensatory, parallel voting systems, which are used in 20 countries, members of a legislature are elected by two different methods. Part of the membership is elected by a plurality or majoritarian election system in single-member constituencies and the other part by proportional representation. The results of the constituency contests have no effect on the outcome of the proportional vote. In compensatory mixed-member systems, leveling seats are allocated to balance nationwide or regional disproportionality produced by the way seats are won in constituency contests. The mixed-member proportional systems, in use in 8 countries, provide enough compensatory seats to ensure that many parties have a share of seats approximately proportional to their vote share. Most of the MMP countries use a PR system at the district level, thus lowering the number of leveling seats that are needed to produce proportional results. Of the MMP countries, only New Zealand and Lesotho use single winner first past the post voting in their districts. Scotland uses a regionalised MMP system where levelling seats are allocated in each region to balance the disproportionality produced in single winner districts within the region. Variations of this include the additional member system, and alternative vote plus, in which voters cast votes for both single-member constituencies and multi-member constituencies. The allocation of seats in the multi-member constituencies is adjusted to achieve an overall seat allocation proportional to parties' vote share by taking into account the number of seats won by parties in the single-member constituencies. Some MMP systems are insufficiently compensatory, and this may result in overhang seats, where parties win more seats in the constituency system than they would be entitled to based on their vote share. Some MMP systems have mechanism, another form of top-up, where additional seats are awarded to the other parties to balance out the effect of the overhang. Germany in 2024 passed a new election law where district overhang seats may be denied, overriding the district result in the pursuit of overall proportionality. Vote linkage mixed systems are also compensatory, however they usually use different mechanism than seat linkage, top-up, method of MMP and usually aren't able to achieve proportional representation. Some electoral systems feature a majority bonus system to either ensure one party or coalition gains a majority in the legislature, or to give the party receiving the most votes a clear advantage in terms of the number of seats. San Marino has a modified 2-round system, which sees a second round of voting featuring the top 2 parties or coalitions if no party takes a majority of votes in the first round. The winner of the second round is guaranteed 35 seats in the 60-seat Grand and General Council. In Greece, the party receiving the most votes was given an additional 50 seats, a system which was abolished following the 2019 elections. Primary elections. Primary elections are a feature of some electoral systems, either as a formal part of the electoral system or informally by choice of individual political parties as a method of selecting candidates, as is the case in Italy. Primary elections limit the possible adverse effect of vote splitting by ensuring that a party puts forward only one party candidate. In Argentina, they are a formal part of the electoral system and take place 2 months before the main elections, Any party receiving less than 1.5% of the vote is not permitted to contest the main elections. In the United States, there are both partisan and nonpartisan primary elections. In nonpartisan primaries, the most popular nominees, even if only one party, are put forward to the election. Indirect elections. Some elections feature an indirect electoral system, whereby there is either no popular vote, or the popular vote is only one stage of the election. In these systems the final vote is usually taken by an electoral college. In several countries, such as Mauritius or Trinidad and Tobago, the post of president is elected by the legislature. In others like India, the vote is taken by an electoral college consisting of the national legislature and state legislatures. In the United States, the president is indirectly elected using a two-stage process. A popular vote in each state elects members to the electoral college that in turn elects the president. This can result in a situation where a candidate who receives the most votes nationwide does not win the electoral college vote, as most recently happened in 2000 and 2016. Proposed and lesser-used systems. In addition to the current electoral systems used for political elections, there are numerous other systems that have been used in the past, are currently used only in private organizations, such as electing board members of corporations or student organizations, or have never been fully implemented. Winner-take-all systems. Among the rank systems these include Buckland voting, the various Condorcet methods, Copeland's, Dodgson's, Kamini-Young, maximal lotteries, Minimax, Nansen's, ranked pairs, Schultz, the Coombs method and positional voting. Among the cardinal electoral systems, the most well-known of these is range voting, where any number of candidates are scored from a set range of numbers. A very common example of range voting are the 5-star ratings used for many customer satisfaction surveys and reviews. Other cardinal systems include satisfaction approval voting, highest median rules, including the majority judgment, and the D21, Janicek method where voters can cast positive and negative votes. Historically, weighted voting systems were used in some countries. These allocated a greater weight to the votes of some voters than others, either indirectly by allocating more seats to certain groups, such as the Prussian three-class franchise, or by weighting the results of the vote. The latter system was used in colonial Rhodesia for the 1962 and 1965 elections. The elections featured two voter rolls, the A roll being largely European and the B roll largely African. The seats of the House Assembly were divided into 50 constituency seats and 15 district seats. Although all voters could vote for both types of seats, A roll votes were given greater weight for the constituency seats and B roll votes greater weight for the district seats. Weighted systems are still used in corporate elections, with votes weighted to reflect stock ownership. Proportional systems. Dual-member proportional representation is a proposed system with two candidates elected in each constituency, one with the most votes and one to ensure proportionality of the combined results. Biproportional apportionment is a system where the total number of votes is used to calculate the number of seats each party is due, followed by a calculation of the constituencies in which the seats should be awarded in order to achieve the total due to them. For proportional systems that use ranked choice voting, there are several proposals, including CPO-STV, Schultz-STV, and the Wright system, which are each considered to be variants of proportional representation by means of the single transferable vote. Among the proportional voting systems that use rating are Thiele's voting rules and Frammon's voting rule. A special case of Thiele's voting rules is proportional approval voting. Some proportional systems that may be used with either ranking or rating include the method of equal shares and the expanding approvals rule. Three-tier systems. The three-tier system proposes a more expanded system that combines traditional technologies and modern technologies to create a more robust and transparent system. First tier is traditional voting with paper ballot into a box and count at the closing of polls. Second tier is the paper ballot is scanned as it enters the box and counted live as ballots come in, and that count is published digitally through internet via sites and API that can be polled by third parties. The third tier is that each ballot has either a tier-out piece where and both parts are numbered or a printed ticket with the number of the ballot and its vote associated. This tier-out or ticket is then used to confirm and audit the ballot by the voter. This enables contesting of the ballot and auditing of the ballot by the voters themselves. This allows for a few aspects. It makes very difficult to vote many times. Confirmation can use a CAPTCHA to slow robots /down. Allows the live count digital to be compared to electoral list and as well as the manual count. Offering a third count to validate the other two. And in turn would show votes just disappeared /not counted. The audit by the voters will bring more responsibility on the part of the voter but also more assurance that their vote was actually counted correctly, thus bolstering confidence in the voting apparatus. Rules and regulations. In addition to the specific method of electing candidates, electoral systems are also characterized by their wider rules and regulations, which are usually set out in a country's constitution or electoral law. Participatory rules determine candidate nomination and voter registration, in addition to the location of polling places and the availability of online voting, postal voting, and absentee voting. Other regulations include the selection of voting devices such as paper ballots, machine voting, or open ballot systems, and consequently the type of vote counting systems, verification, and auditing used. Electoral rules place limits on suffrage and candidacy. Most countries' electorates are characterized by universal suffrage, but there are differences on the age at which people are allowed to vote, with the youngest being 16 and the oldest 21. People may be disenfranchised for a range of reasons, such as being a serving prisoner, being declared bankrupt, having committed certain crimes, or being a serving member of the armed forces. Similar limits are placed on candidacy, also known as passive suffrage, and in many cases the age limit for candidates is higher than the voting age. A total of 21 countries have compulsory voting, although in some there is an upper age limit on enforcement of the law. Many countries also have the none of the above option on their ballot papers. In systems that use constituencies, apportionment or districting defines the area covered by each constituency. Where constituency boundaries are drawn has a strong influence on the likely outcome of elections in the constituency due to the geographic distribution of voters. Political parties may seek to gain an advantage during redistricting by ensuring their voter base has a majority in as many constituencies as possible, a process known as gerrymandering. Historically rotten and pocket boroughs, constituencies with unusually small populations, were used by wealthy families to gain parliamentary representation. Some countries have minimum turnout requirements for elections to be valid. In Serbia this rule caused multiple reruns of presidential elections, with the 1997 election rerun once and the 2002 elections rerun 3 times due insufficient turnout in the first, second, and third attempts to run the election. The turnout requirement was scrapped prior to the fourth vote in 2004. Similar problems in Belarus led to the 1995 parliamentary elections going to a fourth round of voting before enough parliamentarians were elected to make a quorum. Reserved seats are used in many countries to ensure representation for ethnic minorities, women, young people, or the disabled. These seats are separate from general seats, and may be elected separately, such as in Morocco where a separate ballot is used to elect the 60 seats reserved for women and 30 seats reserved for young people in the House of Representatives, or be allocated to parties based on the results of the election. In Jordan the reserved seats for women are given to the female candidates who failed to win constituency seats but with the highest number of votes, whilst in Kenya the Senate seats reserved for women, young people, and the disabled are allocated to parties based on how many seats they won in the general vote. Some countries achieve minority representation by other means, including requirements for a certain proportion of candidates to be women, or by exempting minority parties from the electoral threshold, as is done in Poland, Romania, and Serbia. Thank you for watching this video.